Hola friends, welcome to the Medicine, Marriage, and Money YouTube channel, the only channel for physicians who want to achieve marital interdependence and financial freedom together. On this channel, you will learn how to show up as the best version of yourself so that you can love intentionally and build a more financially savvy relationship with your spouse. And I am your host, a physician mom, a doctor's wife, a Gottman leader, a certified life and marriage coach, Dr. Kate Mangona. Welcome. Bienvenidos.
Purpose of making love is not that Liz is going to have an orgasm, but it's the tactile,
it's the connection
and experience
and the shared joy.
But after mine, then I'll just lay there and pet Liz, until we fall asleep, or for 10, 15 minutes sometimes, and just to be together and enjoy that moment. And it's one of the most special things about it, of just, being connected that way.
And I think a lot of men feel love from sex. And I think a lot of women don't realize that, how important that is to.
Please help me welcome our special guests on today's episode of Medicine, Marriage, and Money, Doctors Liz Treynor and Charles Stillman. Dr. Treynor is a pathologist by day, mental health warrior by night, and really just a human at all times, normalizing discussions on mental health among women physicians. She's a podcaster, the founder of Mindsurfer MD, and her loving husband, Dr. Charles Stillman, is a radiologist, aka Dr. Chako. Together, they have a blended family with 4 children and have been madly in love for 11 years. So take it away. Let's welcome Drs. Liz Treynor and Dr. Chako.
Hi, how is everybody? It's so much fun to be here, Kate. I'm really delighted to be here.
Thanks for coming. Well, it was just I feel like we've known each other on Facebook for a while now and finally got to meet in person in Bora Bora a few weeks ago.
Yeah. No, it was so much fun meeting you. And in fact, I'm inspired to try eyelash extensions, and I have an appointment this afternoon. So I got to talk to you later about how you like them. I'm hoping they'll last for the White Coat Investor Conference, but
yes. Okay. Yes. Well, with the salt water, they did. I still have maybe 1 or 2 on each eyes, but yeah. You let me know. We'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk. Cool.
So let's go back to when you guys fell in love. Tell us, when was that? What was that like? Why did you fall in love? And you guys can each kind of. Oh, look, you're showing a little picture.
My husband, for our first anniversary, literally hired a sketch artist to commemorate our first date at Cafe Baroni, which is our favorite place in Menlo Park, California. I had all my match dates scheduled in a row at this wonderful coffee place. Right?
I was number 2 of 3.
He was number 2 of 3. I had a hike in the morning, and then I had one right after him. But I was like, this guy is going to be the winner, and I really had to squeeze him in. But he even put the date that we met. It's 6/10/12.
I'm terrible with anniversary dates, and so it's not.
Yeah, 6/10/12. That's the date we met.
Wow. And it was magical. Tell me, what about it? So he was number 2 of 3?
Well, let me back up. I had dated many frogs after a very painful divorce, and it was the worst 5 years of my life. And when my marriage dissolved, the day I knew it was over, I had 3 thoughts. One is, what about my health insurance? As a physician, it's crazy, right? We don't have our own health insurance. Number 2, what about the Mediterranean cruise in Disney we were doing in the spring? And number 3, it's going to take me 5 years to fall in love again. And I met my husband almost 5 years to the day that my husband moved out. I still call him my husband. He's like my husband. I have 2 husbands. I love my husband too. But I was going to meet 4 friends one night. Every single one of them canceled. And I was like, God damn it, I'm just going to go on Match and entertain myself. Right. And the algorithm, because it has you rate a bunch of guys to figure out what you like. And the algorithm said, well, you might like this handsome doctor.
Yeah.
His profile was, yep, I'm a Jewish doctor. Your mother would be so proud. And I just thought his profile was hilarious. The first sentence was, my kids are the most important thing to me. And if you don't get that, we're not a match. And I'm like, I love this guy already because I feel the same way about my kids. And the other funny thing is I had hired a very high end, expensive, like $15,000 dating service. They said what I wanted was impossible and that I was unreasonable. Basically, they said, we can only get you somebody who's like 10 years older, who lives in San Francisco, like an hour away, Anyway, they set me up with a bunch of losers. And then I finally went to match.com. I got exactly what I had ordered from the universe. And this is the other funny thing I love to tell. I had a therapist who suggested I literally write a letter to myself about everything that my future fantasy husband would be.
Yes.
Every detail, down to looks like Matthew Broderick and makes at least $300,000 a year. Lives within 5 miles, loves his kids, thinks I'm gorgeous and sexy, just the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
And loves nature hikes, like all that outdoorsy, athletic-y stuff. Is funny, right? That was really important to me, to share my goofy sense of humor. And anyway, forgot about this note. I was cleaning out the purse a couple years after we married and found this note. And I tell you, Kate, he's every single thing to the T.
She showed me the letter, and it was frightening at how accurately it described me.
And so
How
I
feel like I've been manifested by the universe. Like I had a whole life before I met you. I'm a real human being.
Write this down. How many years before you met him did you write it down?
About 3 years before we met, because it was right after I was in love with this wonderful pathologist. He was so sexy and funny, but he was a polyamorous. He had other girlfriends on the side and didn't know about it until he had a stroke. Met his other girlfriend when he couldn't see me out of his right eye. Saw him kiss her in the hospital. And I'm like, I am so out of here. So it was after that. And that was about, 2010 or so that I started working with this hypnotherapist. And that was one of her suggestions when I was really, really depressed. And so it was about 2 years before we met that I did this exercise. And so, we met some friends in Bora Bora, they're physicians who are like scared to kind of get out in the dating scene. And so my homework for all of them is you go home right now and you write out exactly what you're looking for, down to the T, what they look like, where they live, what they like to eat. Like one of his things was, I love sushi. I'm like, oh yeah, you're my guy. And then the second thing is having the courage to step out there. I remember walking to our date and thinking, I just want to stay home and read the New York Times. This is terrifying. I would be much happier just sitting at home and reading the New York Times and not having this terror of putting myself out there again. And I'm so glad I jumped, right? It's like Bora Bora. It's like having the courage to just jump off that balcony, 20 feet off the water, and just having the courage to jump. And because I was willing to jump, the universe delivered. So.
Oh my gosh. Every single thing you said just now, just like, okay.
Yeah. The universe delivered.
Dr. Chako, you tell me, how did you, okay, yeah, what's not to love about everything, right?
I'm very lovable.
He is. State. He told me.
Well, okay. I know what you're going to say. I'll tell that part of the story.
Back off.
So my experience on online dating was very different than Liz's. And this is something Liz talks about all the time. I'm not really stealing her thunder by saying this, but when I was a younger man, I was very shy. I was not, basically every date that I ever had was where a woman had asked me out because I was too clueless to realize that they were interested in me. I asked him
out too, by the way.
That's true. And so when I, got divorced after 17 years, I was afraid that I was going to become that shy young man again. And I quickly realized by, getting out there and doing online dating that the tables had turned.
He was a hottie.
Beyond that, we'll get to that. But I found that online dating gave me a confidence that I didn't really ever have before, because right out of the gate, I was able to have a date, which shocked me.
4 women in one day.
Hang on. We don't need to tell that story.
You had to make sure they drove away before the next one pulled in the...
That was further down the line. but I'd had this date, and I'm going to tell this story again. Okay. She was amazing. Truly, just like, I could not believe I was lucky enough to be able to find somebody right out of the gate who was funny and beautiful and interesting. She was also 15 years younger than me. And on our third date, she said to me, "I'm in love with you." And I said, "That's nice." And she said, "Oh gosh, you're not ready to say it." And I said, "I'm really not. This, you're wonderful, but this is our third date." And she said, "That's okay. I'll say it for both of us." And so that was it. She would say, "I love you." And I'd say, "That's nice." And that was how we had a relationship. Eventually, she was living very far away. I'm here in California. She was living in Minnesota. And she said, "You're always flying me to California. Why don't you come out to Minnesota and meet my friends?" I'm like, "Great." So we went out to Minnesota. We had a lovely trip. Her parents refused to meet me, I think because I was a lot older and they thought I was trying to take advantage of the little girl. And she sold real estate. And so I love looking at houses. So she showed me this beautiful house, which would have been $10 million in California. It was like, $400,000 out there in Minnesota. We're standing in the kitchen of this beautiful house. She puts her arms around me. She says, "This is where we're going to raise our family." And I said, "I already have a family." And it quickly became obvious to me that she wanted to make babies with me. And I'd had teenagers at that point, didn't really want to start another family. So one of the most painful things I ever had to do was to say, "Look, you're an amazing person and you're going to be an amazing mom, but it's not going to be with me." And so the first relationship I had out of the gate, I found a beautiful young woman who tells me that she's in love with me, and I have to break up with her.
And you got a vasectomy right after that.
I did. My friends were like, "Dude, you gotta get a vasectomy." That's what I did. And so, so then I'm like, "Oh gosh, I got just crazy lucky. And this will never happen again." And it happened again. And truly, the very next woman I dated on our third date told me that she was in love with me. And I'm like, this is insane. And I said, "That's nice." And she seemed to be okay with that. And then we broke up. And believe it or not, it happened a third time, where a woman on the third date said that she was in love with me. So fast forward now to that date there on the cartoon that Liz just showed you at Baroni's. We meet, and our very first conversation, I say, all cocky now, I say to Liz, "Be careful. Women fall in love with me by the third date."
So I reminded myself, if I fall in love with him, I'm not going to tell him until the 10th date.
Well, what date did you fall in love with me?
Well, I fell in love like on the 4th date.
It was the 4th date.
But
she didn't
I didn't
say
tell
anything
him until the 8th date.
And when she told me, she was the first person that I said, "I love you" back.
And I started crying.
What? Okay, back up here. So with that first girl, did you tell her you didn't want to have a family? Like what is your advice to other people? Like, do you talk about that on the first date or
believe it or not? That's such a great question because
narrow your age range.
I had to change my Match.com profile to say let's
20 to 60.
Well,
he thought he couldn't get a date.
I did have to change. Yeah. Yeah. My age range, because I really thought I was never going to get a date. So my age range on Match was 35 to 61, hoping that I was 44 at the time, hoping that somebody in that range would find me interesting and within 500 miles, and I could narrow that eventually. So, but after getting some confidence and being able to find some dates on online dating, I could narrow those parameters, and I actually had to change my Match.com profile to say, "Let's not talk about marriage on the first date," and because it became an issue, and I really felt like that. Okay, I'm a nice guy, I'm an interesting guy with a job, but honestly, it became obvious to me that I'm a physician, and I actually did not want to date. I had 2 rules online dating: no doctors and no cats.
Okay.
Liz was a doctor with a cat. So
I didn't like my cat. I wanted an excuse to let go of the cat and return it to the shelter. So
right. So we eventually got rid of the cat, but I felt bad about it.
God, I wanted to get rid of it a year before you let me get rid of it.
But it became obvious to me when I was online dating that, I was a physician and fairly well off, and that
He's allergic to cats,
I am
by the
allergic
way.
to cats.
And he was hiding it for a year. And when he said, "Can you take the cat out of the room?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm busy. Can you just carry the cat out?" And he looked at me and he said, "No." And that's when I got how much he was hiding this from me. He was piling up on, all those.
Taking all the allergy meds and the slow days and everything.
Oh.
But back to the online dating, which is the point I was going to make.
Sorry.
Was that, no, it's fine. Is that I was never sure with these women that were falling in love with me if they were. You keep putting it on the desk elevator. I'm going to bring the desk back down.
Standing desk button.
I was never sure if these women were truly in love with me or if they were looking at me like I was a meal ticket.
Yeah.
And so that always clouded, that the relationship a little bit.
So that's another tip for me, ladies. You want to date somebody who's in your finance bracket.
Well, okay. So Liz says that, but in fact, Liz and I are not in the same bracket at all. At least we weren't when we were dating. But Liz, not even close. When we first started dating, Liz was worth way more than me. And
priceless. What can I say?
Just financially, just from the contractual aspect of a relationship. And so when I realized that I wanted to spend the rest,
or I had advantages. I'm
true.
Very fortunate. My parents paid for my education,
and you had a very well-off ex-husband and all this other stuff. And so when it became obvious to me that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Liz, I came to her with a prenup.
Wow.
And I said, I don't want you for your money. I want you for you. I will sign this or anything you want right now because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And it worked out.
Yeah.
I can see you almost crying there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he was spending like $30,000 on these fancy trips with his other radiologist friends who live in Texas and make a hell of a lot more money. Can I just say, you radiologists in Texas make way more money than us in California. Your taxes are less.
Hey, I'm academic, by the way.
Okay, fine. Different category. But I was thinking to myself, I am not going to finance his $30,000 trips to go skydiving in Belize or wherever he went.
Yeah. Brazil,
Rio de
Janeiro, and it was hang gliding.
It was hang gliding. Sorry, I digress. But but he offered the prenup without me even bringing it up because I had dated a parasite. Like I had dated somebody in retrospect that was totally dating me for my money, and I was so naive out of the gate. It was the first guy I dated on Match. It was like I just wrote about him on my my Mindsurfer MD profile. It was parasited. Anyway. But live and learn, right? That's part of it. You're going to kiss frogs, and before you find
this frog actually moved in with you, though.
And that I was so naive. Oh my god! And he didn't. He refused to pay rent.
Refused to leave.
And refused to leave.
This was long before me. I've heard the story.
Yeah. So anyway, part of being on the dating is you're going to date some frogs, and the other thing is, ladies, you want somebody who's fresh meat.
Oh, this was the point I was going to make earlier.
What does that mean? Fresh meat?
Okay, so
he wasn't even divorced a year.
Right.
The good ones are on the market only briefly. They get snatched up.
Yeah.
Like by me.
There's a lot of women out there who's had the experience of online dating where they meet a guy who's been on online dating for 5+ years.
Because they're cheaters.
They're players, right? They're people that are out there. They just like serial dating. They like, having sex with another woman.
Or they're jerks, so they get thrown back in the pool.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So I'd say 90% are jerks or cheaters, and there's like 10%, and you look for the fresh meat because those are the good ones.
Tips. This is really good tips.
And also you must be on good terms with your ex. That speaks volumes.
Yeah. And in fact, one of my favorite things of all time is the fact that, first of all, I dated some women online dating who were having screaming fights with their exes, and they'd been divorced for 5 years. And I have no time in my life for that kind of drama. But Liz was on great terms with her ex. I'm on great terms with my ex. So much so that Liz's ex...
Cheryl, she's so cool.
Liz's ex-husband and his wife and my ex-wife and her husband all came to our wedding.
To our Princess Bride wedding, which was super fun.
Okay, so tell me about that. Okay, so then why did you guys get divorced? What did you learn from that? What is like the biggest takeaway from the divorce?
I learned that sexual attraction is critical.
Well, hang on. That wasn't the question was, why'd you get divorced?
Well, that's because that's why we got divorced.
Well, that's not all of it, I wouldn't think. But
Well, that was most of it.
Okay. Okay. What about for you, Dr. Chako?
Okay. So, my situation was very different. I am, so you didn't really get my bio. So I'll hit the quick highlights of the bio. I just retired from the military as a full-bird colonel after 30 years of service.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
And thank you. Yeah, I would do it all again. It was an amazing time.
He was in Iraq.
And well,
you got deployed to Colorado Springs, best deployment ever. But you did spend it in Iraq. So.
Yeah, I was in Iraq 07 to 08, and when I came back from Iraq, it was clear that my marriage had basically run its course. And we were having some difficulties before I got deployed, but by the time I got back, it was obvious to me that
you weren't having any sex.
Well, we don't have to talk about that.
That's the part.
But regardless, that was more of a symptom. It was a sign, not a symptom of the ending of the relationship. So so it was clear that relationship had run its course, and we decided at that point that we were going to depart as friends.
Okay.
Probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do was, break that news to the kids, but they handled it really well. And so much so that, and like I said, we remained friends. I after the divorce, I moved out, to Sunnyvale, California. Then I moved over to the East Bay, and then the house literally right next door to my ex-wife
over the fence
came available, quite literally on the same side of the street. It was only a hedge separating the two houses.
Wave at her from the kitchen.
And we could see each other through the kitchen window. And when we would have joint custody of the kids, so the kids would just walk around the hedge, depending on whose parents' turn it was to be with. It worked out really well. So.
But the Palo Alto rents were too high. So once Chuck was established in a cheaper house, and like an old Eichler rundown, much lower rent than the one that you guys were living in. She moved to Cupertino. So
but
they had the Palo Alto schools.
I had been dating all over, California, and I finally narrowed my search pattern to just, California. And then Liz pops up and emails me and, asks me what my specialty is. I said, I'm a radiologist. She said,
hi, Dr. Chako, what's your specialty? Normally Dr. Liz.
And she says, she's a doctor. So I was immediately suspicious, but it turns out she lived 3 miles.
I'm suspicious of you too. I was like, oh, he's probably a surgeon who has a horrible life.
No. What were you suspicious of? A female physician, I guess.
So I would for the same thing that Liz was suspicious of, which is
overworker.
I'm a laid back guy, and I don't want a type A personality. And a lot of doctors that I know are very type A. They're and I didn't want that, and that's kind of why I was just no doctors in general. But when I found out Liz was a pathologist, I'm like, oh, that could be as laid back as me.
Psyched to find out you were a radiologist. I'm like, oh, red path correlation.
Yep. And we've had some amazing conversations at the dinner table.
I had a myxopapillary ependymoma today, and you're like, I did too.
Histopathologic sampling is recommended.
Very, very few people that would sympathize with that kind of conversation. But Liz was actually less than 3 miles door to door from where I was living. I know.
Proximity.
Just absolutely insane.
Proximity. That's my other tip, ladies.
Proximity. Fresh meat proximity.
Yeah.
Okay, and then save the marriage discussion to the second date. The marriage discussion. When do we have that discussion?
Yeah, that was after we both said that we love you to each other. And
funny, a year after we've been dating, we were driving to a weekend in Half Moon Bay, and we drove by a bail bond place. It says we do weddings, and I said, "Oh, honey, we could get married there." And I wasn't even thinking, like,
we hadn't discussed marriage at all at that point.
It was like, oh shit, I just blew it. Like, I just basically proposed to him, and I didn't even mean to. So then that weekend, we were at this beautiful woodworking shop. And I was like, oh, I love this jewelry box. And Chuck came over and he looked at it. He said, this might make a really nice wedding present.
That was the first hint that I gave to Liz that I was considering marriage as well.
And he said, don't ask. I'm the guy.
I have to do the asking.
I'm the guy. Okay. And I still blew it because I just get impulsive and it busted out of me. we went to Disneyland for Halloween with all 4 of our kids, and
and your mom
and my mom, and so my mom was Princess Amygdala. No,
not amygdala, amygdala.
I'm like, who's that?
I was Princess Leia. You were Han Solo, and we're walking through the stalls
to get into the park,
and I just busted out, "Let's get married," or something like that. And you're like, "Do you have a ring?"
Well, I had a plan
and
to propose to Liz at Disneyland.
You can't ask.
And she almost ruined the whole thing.
He asked me to marry him the next night.
So, and like deer in the headlights moment, I'm like, "Do you have a ring?" And she said, "No." And I'm like, phew.
So then for 24 hours, I'm like, "Oh shit, I just ruined this relationship with this man I adored, told me not to ask." So then I was so relieved when you.
How many dates was it that for the woodworking,
That was about 14 months. So we met July 12th, and it was end of July the following year. I had the bail bonds incident.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So tell me about the Princess Bride and your vows.
So we would go out to the gym together every day at the JCC, or every once a week at the JCC, and then we would go get breakfast at a place called Hobie's.
And my favorite was the Santa Cruz Scramble.
Right.
And we were fantasizing about, could we do a destination wedding? And then when I was eating the Santa Cruz Scramble, I was like, we should just do it in Santa Cruz, because then our friends could still drive there. And it's sort of like a destination, like people would want to come. And
I had a little sports car, and I was driving down Pacific Coast Highway down towards Santa Cruz on Highway 1. And I just pulled over the car randomly, and I got out to walk down toward where the beach area is. And I came upon the most spectacular beach I'd ever seen in my life.
Shark Tooth Beach.
It's Shark Tooth or Shark Fin Cove. One of those.
Shark Tooth
Beach.
Beach.
Davenport Cove, just north of Santa Cruz.
11 miles
between Santa Cruz and Half Moon Bay. And I walked down, and it was just jaw dropping. And it was the side of the beach are these sheer cliffs, which I jokingly call the Cliffs of Insanity, which is a scene from the movie The Princess Bride. And so,
listeners, you got to watch The Princess Bride if you haven't seen it.
It's the greatest movie of all time.
Oh, highly quotable.
And so, as Liz and I were sitting at Hobie's restaurant talking about where to get married, I said, "Well, why don't we get married at the Cliffs of Insanity?" And then it was like, "Well, why not just have a whole Princess Bride themed wedding?"
Well, backing up, we started interviewing cake people in the Santa Cruz area, and this one fancy cake maker who was way out of my price range, we didn't use her, had a book of cakes, and one of her cakes was a popcorn cake. Like, we love going to the movies, and I was like, why would anybody want a popcorn cake? You know, like the big popcorn movie bucket.
Yes.
You know, and she'd use like fondant to make the damn popcorn, and I'm like, I could hire somebody. Well, it was at that moment that it dawned on me, oh my God, we really should have a Princess Bride wedding, because it's like using a movie theme. And and so we did have a popcorn cake as well as a 3-tiered As You Wish,
which was another line from the movie.
Yeah. That was Wesley's way in the movie of always saying he loved
Buttercup. Yep.
Which was Robin Wright Penn's first movie, by the way.
Back when she was just Robin Wright.
Back when she was just Robin Wright.
Yep. And so that's how the Princess Bride wedding came. And then we had a bunch of our friends. We had the whole theme. We dressed up in costume. We had videographers and drones.
I was like writing and costuming and directing a film. It was like this wonderful creative outlet for me for a year. Like, you kind of just showed up, but
I really did.
Yeah. But, you know, like designing, you know, the invitation with like funny movie quotes, like, you know, you'll fall in love at first sight, or, you know, like, anyway, just had so much fun designing everything from choosing the food names to like,
it's beautiful
Fezzik soda, or silly things. Lamb chops. The lamb chops were mutton chops
from we had the impressive clergyman. Our friend dressed up as the impressive clergyman. Her husband,
the mutton chops.
She
surprised me with the mutton chops.
Who was dressed up as Fezzik, and it was really was.
Your exes were there.
I found real Catholic like robes on Etsy. but the miter for the bishop's hat was like $500 to get a real one. So I got the $20, Halloween one
costume,
from Amazon. But it looked great. It all worked.
We have
I've seen the pictures. I've seen, you need it.
We have a whole video.
Yeah.
Okay, yes,
I
that's
can
what
give you the link. Yeah.
I need a picture so that when we post this, I can share that for people.
Absolutely.
And now, let's move into, are you guys ready?
Well, I was thinking I want to give you the link for the 5-minute highlight because it's so funny, and you could put it in the show notes if people want to see. It's like we used real Princess Bride music. I had a drone who was getting great footage of the cliffs of insanity.
We'll put those in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, it's funny.
What I want to find out more about is because you've already talked about sexual attraction multiple times, and I know you're going to share some sex tips with us, and mental health. I want to talk about mental health and why that's so important to you and how you guys talk about that in your marriage and how that affects your marriage.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful because they kind of tie together, right? Because my brain is, I like to say I'm mentally spiced. My brain works very quickly on a high frequency sometimes. I was saying yesterday at Chako, it's like I have a high twitch brain and then I have a low twitch brain. And so for months at a time, I'm highly functional and I have a lot of fun and I love doing podcasts and talking about sex tips and embarrassing my husband. And then for months at a time, I don't want to get out of bed. Like, I just wish I wouldn't wake up. And so that experience of being profoundly depressed for the majority of my existence is something that I know as physicians can be very isolating for those of us that experience depression. And a lot of us, have experienced burnout, which is like another form of depression. Whereas my depression is kind of an internal depression. Like, I love my life. I love my career. I'm so passionate about what I do. I have a healthy husband, healthy kids, like I have a house. I used to say there's no reason for me to be depressed. And just recently somebody suggested, well, actually and I would always say I have no trauma. And somebody suggested, it was actually Jessie Mahoney, who's another life coach that I use. She's wonderful. Said, well, actually, I would disagree. I think you've had trauma all your life. You've been depressed since you were 12. And it's like the brain that doesn't work it's like my internal critic, right? We all have the worst internal critics. But so anyway, as physicians, right, we're afraid to talk about it because some of us can lose our licenses, and with the ADA non-compliant medical licensing laws that still remain in many states, and that's something that I really want to change. But also on a short-term basis, my podcast and my Facebook group are about providing us kind of a safe community where we can talk about what it's like, and my other goal is just provide simple, actionable tips like starting a meditation habit. Like, that really helped me. And, getting your ass onto your spin bike, right? Because if you exercise in the morning, you get a 12-hour dopamine boost. You get a 12-hour serotonin boost, right? So like, not exercising is like taking a depressant. And every morning I'm like, I'm not taking a depressant, I'm working out. No matter how depressed I am, I can get my butt on the bike. So just simple tips, like that. And so, but the point of all this is, it is a multifactorial support system, right? So I am on medication. I do have a coach. I do have a psychiatrist. I do have my fundamentals every single day, right? My exercise, my meditation, getting enough sleep. But one of the side effects of Prozac is it's very hard for me to have an orgasm. So I like to save my orgasms for my husband because it's super fun. And he said to me, Liz, you really need to practice more. And I'm like, why would I do that? Facebook's so fun. That's like not that interesting to me. Because
like, you'd rather be on Facebook than practicing.
Exactly. Because truly with the Prozac, I do not have the desire to initiate. However, I read something in Costco once, just flipping open a book by Dr. Ruth, and she said something to the effect of, you don't need to be in the mood to enjoy it. It's sort of like getting your ass on the bike, even though you don't want to, because motivation follows the movement. And so making love to my husband every single morning, that's another tip. Do it in the morning. I'm always too tired at night. We're both morning people. It's the best. But every single morning I get to make love to this gorgeous man. And it makes me so happy. It gives me so much joy. And I benefit from all the pets.
Right. So that's the point that I was going to make, is that not everybody is lucky enough to have this situation, but we're both very tactile. And so I am aware that even though
he said that in his match profile too, I love pets.
Okay, not like
right.
Not cats and dogs, pets.
Yes, but even though that that I know that
this week's episode is sponsored by our Making Marriage Work program for couples. Making Marriage Work is an 8-week online program focused on helping physicians and their spouses feel less stuck and disconnected and more in love and passionately grateful, which prevents years of pent-up resentment and allows marital interdependence and emotional freedom to start now. We will help you tap into those hidden butterflies faster together. The course is only open a few times a year, so be sure to get on our wait list at medicinemarriageandmoney.com.
Purpose of making love is not that Liz is going to have an orgasm, but it's the tactile,
it's the connection
and experience
and the shared joy.
But after mine, then I'll just lay there and pet Liz, until we fall asleep, or for 10, 15 minutes sometimes, just to be together and enjoy that moment. And it's one of the most special things about it, of just being connected that way.
And I think a lot of men feel love from sex. And I think a lot of women don't realize that, how important that is to feel desired, or, anyway, I find you incredibly sexy. Anyway, he's got these juicy lips that I love.
Yeah, it's like the masculine and feminine energy. Yeah, look at those juicy lips. Oh my gosh.
He sent me an avatar, and I'm like, who's that black guy? And it was supposed to be you. I was like, oh, it doesn't look anything like you.
The iPhone creates an avatar, and I look African American for some reason, but
because you got these great lips. I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but it was it was very strange.
Yeah. So
oh my gosh. That is all so important, Liz. I'm so glad you shared that. And so now that when you are on Prozac, do you still have
I do have orgasms about every 2 weeks. So
I was going to ask you if you still have the lows, the depression, the once where you're the low twitch, but yes, you do still have orgasms.
Yeah, so he has 30 orgasms a month and I have like 2.
Okay.
But yes, or more actually, because you sometimes take care of yourself. So he's very good about that as well.
Okay.
And the
practice. Okay, so let's go back to the practice. So when he told you you need to practice, that was because to practice having desire?
Well, to practice figuring out like how my body works and what really turns me on. And so I also want to recommend a book to our listeners that I just learned from Sonia Wright called I think it's called The Women's Anatomy of Desire, or The Anatomy of Arousal or something. Okay. But it's like this really wonderful, fun, light, entertainingly written kind of anatomic manual of all the fun parts that are down there that we didn't learn in medical school, or at least I forgot.
You didn't learn any of this stuff in medical school.
Like vestibular bulbs? Oh, really? Oh.
Might have talked about them during
urethral sponge? What?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I quote that book, and I'm going to look up the title.
Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing. Do you?
But I still get depressed. I do.
Still get depressed for months, weeks?
For months.
Yeah. So we actually had a conversation about that. And I think I can say this, but even early on in our relationship, Liz didn't really want to talk about mental illness, didn't want to talk about bipolar. And it's only really through COVID and through Liz's podcast that she's really started talking about those things. And I think it's wonderful to be open and honest with yourself and others about it, so that once you start to talk about it, you can put names to it. We actually didn't call it mania.
Well, yeah, I had I also did acupuncture for depression, and she, Claudia, suggested, you don't have to put these words on it that have these kind of negative connotations. So I call it like when I'm extra happy or extra energetic. Then I don't feel like I'm not crazy. I don't feel like I'm mentally ill. It's just like my brain works differently sometimes, and we use these labels so that psychiatrists can speak the words and understand the condition, but they're just labels, and we give them meaning that aren't necessarily real, right? They're just arbitrary words that anyway. So so keep talking.
So it was just that we started talking about it more openly, and I basically just asked, what are my responsibilities when you're low or when you're high? And Liz said, well, when I'm low, just be there and, hug me and hold me. I'm like, great. I love doing that anyway.
And drag me out of bed.
Yeah.
Like force me to go to see the concert at Filoli.
Right.
Where I really just wanted to stay in bed and cry all day, but it was your favorite artist who played our first
Tuck and Patty.
It was our first dance. And you had tickets to see this wonderful concert, and I just did not want to go. I was so depressed, and you literally dragged me out of bed in the middle of the afternoon and said, we're going. And it was this wonderful, magical concert, and I cried throughout it, but I saw a friend there that I hadn't seen in years who was also crying throughout it.
That's just amazing that he asked you too, like, what do you need? Like, how can I support you?
Yep.
He does.
And then the other part of it too is, and we actually talked about this a little bit on the Stockwell podcast, but
what's that called again? The intimacy?
Yes, the intimate marriage.
Intimate marriage podcast.
Was that you have to be really comfortable with who you are to be married to somebody, to be married to Liz. And what I mean by that is
I embarrassed other guys. Like, they were embarrassed to be with me.
Yeah, when Liz is up, she can be very talkative, very demonstrative, and the tendency could be to be embarrassed by that or embarrassed for Liz. And I had to, very quickly make a decision for myself about, does Liz need defending, right? Does she need me to protect her in this situation?
No.
And she absolutely does not. And once I gave myself permission to realize that I'm not her protector or defender, I mean, I'm not going to let her hurt herself or, cause damage to her career, but it's never gotten even close to that. It's just, I can be comfortable.
Put your phone in the glove box today, Liz. I'm noticing you're kind of squirrely. We have this scale. If you've ever seen Over the Hedge with your kids, it's a DreamWorks movie that came out like 20 years ago. We saw it with our kids when they were young. And the squirrel finds Diet Coke in the garbage can and he drinks it. And then the whole world slows down. And that's the way I feel when my brain is on fast twitch. It's like I listen to everything on 2x. I'm constantly creating things, putting things together. So much fun.
We call it the squirrel on Red Bull scale. And so when Liz is on 5 Red Bulls, like, okay, well, she should probably put her phone in the glove box when she's driving so she doesn't get distracted. 6. One time she got to 9, and actually I got concerned at that point, but it's only happened once. And
you got to 9. You have a scale.
Then we just sort of a scale for ourselves. The squirrel,
you make it yourself. Okay.
The squirrel on Red Bull scale, to where the 1 through 9 is basically, where we are on the manic.
Okay, got it. Yeah, but it's not like you drank 9 Red Bulls. It's just
no.
But if
one is like, I wish I were dead. 9 is like, I'm bouncing off the walls and sleeping 2 hours a night.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that was amazing advice, Dr. Chako. When you said you need to be very comfortable with who you are to be married to blank, that is for everybody. That is not, Liz, super special, super amazing, super sexy.
Thank you.
We all need to be comfortable with who we are if we're married to anybody.
Yeah.
Because, right?
Well, and that was, that going back to my first marriage, it was a great marriage, but it was clear to me that we had stopped being a marriage of equals. It was kind of almost a parental relationship we had, where I had to ask permission to do things, and then she felt obligated to grant permission or not grant permission. And so the lesson I learned from that is, right from day one of our relationship, we needed to establish that we were in a marriage or relationship of equals, where we're not going to ask permission from each other to do things, and we were going to respect each other's boundaries, and it's worked out perfectly.
Oh my gosh.
When people ask me, for advice, marriage advice now, that's what I tell them. I was like, from the get-go, be a relationship of equals.
He loves telling his friends, well, first of all, how much fun we have in the bed, but also like how he just adores me because he can do whatever he wants. Like, we both have our fun, independent, lovely lives.
Yeah.
And then when it works out that I'm not in Bora Bora and you're not at a golf tournament,
yeah, I literally just came back from a golf tournament with my buddies in Las Vegas. Liz went to Bora Bora with you and with her girlfriends. This is so critical.
But
absolutely,
it's like,
and we love traveling together.
Go play golf. Go
play golf. I'm gonna go to Bora Bora and cry every day and connect and love.
Oh my God, it was so, like somebody said, I think it was Allison who said it was an emotional massage. It was like just the best, most healing week of my life. I am so grateful to you, Kate, and all those other 66 amazing docs that we got to spend time with. I'm such a fan of.
Just be ourselves. To be ourselves.
Yeah, but empowering women physicians has really changed my life. And for people, if you're not on her Facebook already, EWP is rocks.
Yes, Empowering Women Physicians by Dr. Sunny Smith. I changed my life, changed my marriage. And Victor and I talked about that on previous episodes, how I signed him up to be in that Empowering Women Physicians group.
Yeah, no, it was Sunny who gave me the courage to go public with my mental spice. Mm-hmm. She had done a group coaching session with just about physician suicide. And it was because of that, and because I had a family member who was also really struggling with suicidal ideation at that time. And it also happened to be Mental Health Month, I think. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going public. And that's just having the courage. Sorry, I said a bad word.
Oh,
I didn't even notice.
So what that is actually a signal that I'm going to ask you guys to give your any last words of wisdom. And it could be like certain sex tips. Maybe you should buy this. Maybe you should try this, or anything pertaining to medicine, marriage, or money as kind of this is my.
So many things. But I'm telling you, the favorite vibrator I found is like this $20 thing that I got on Amazon. And I tried this fancy one that Sonia recommended for $140. It doesn't do it for me. Okay. What
are the names? What are the names of these?
Right. So the Volta, I said it sounds like an electric car. So that's the one I tried, and I'll experiment with it a little bit more, but being able to have an orgasm while I'm making eye contact with you is like magic. And it's very hard to do that because I need the vibrator because, and then the positions that allow that obviously are not usually eye contact related. But honestly, I don't even remember the name of the $20 one, but it looks like the Tango, which usually costs $100. And I don't even think they make the Tango anymore. It's by the people who do WeVibe, but it looks like the Tango, but it's a cheap version and it works. It's like super strong. It has like a little finger holder on the bottom, so I don't lose it.
If people want to find this,
like lipstick. Find you. It looks like lipstick. It looks like little lipstick.
She'll email you the specifics of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just tell me where can they find you in case they want to come.
Okay. Not how to find the vibrator. Okay. So I'm on Facebook. I have a private Facebook group, and I would love to have anybody who loves anybody with mental spice and or has experienced pain and burnout and all that stuff that many of us physicians have. It's called Mind Surfer MD, 3 words. And I also have a podcast of the same name. And there are months at a time when I don't post anything. And there are months at a time when I don't do any podcasts. And you all understand why. But there are times when I do enjoy it and I post multiple times a day. So it just depends on where my brain is at that moment. But yeah, I would love to see you in there and continue the conversation and support each other. So, we're all human. And I think a lot of the pain that we have with the depression is amplified because we feel isolated and we isolate ourselves. At least I isolate myself. And the best treatment I found is being dragged into public. Even though I really don't want to. I really don't want to go to dinner with friends. I really don't want to go to this concert. I really don't want to fly to my friend David Ye's wedding. I wanted to sit and cry. And I was hoping that I would be kicked off the flight because then I wouldn't have to go. But it's the best thing going there and connecting with Ileana and, other members of Leveraging Growth Accelerators.
Well, I missed that wedding. But I'm so glad you and Ileana got
Shout out to David. I know you proposed to your wife on this podcast. So anyway, other last minute tips, babe?
No, I mean, for tip for me or
anything.
Yeah, you can find me on the golf course. I don't have a blog or a podcast. Well, I had a blog many years ago, but
blog.
Yeah, because I used to
on the golf course in California. What town is this?
I'm down in Santa Cruz.
We got married at Pasatiempo outside of Santa Cruz. It's gorgeous,
and that's down there now.
Where he's a member now.
Yeah.
Okay,
and he plays with other radiologists
all the time.
Yeah.
Tips. Okay, I'll give you one sex tip and one non-sex tip. The sex tip is I've never really had any issues sexually, but Cialis is
Cialis rocks.
So important because Liz can
it's like a rock.
Liz can take a while and
chair people and
being able to I'm going to tell a joke. I've never done this,
jokes.
Go for it. But being able to play on my phone while Liz is paying attention to herself. I don't. But
it's very self-entertaining.
You guys, I am going to pee on myself. So seriously, I've got to go.
Right. And then the other piece, the non-sexual piece of advice is something. It's the single best piece of advice I ever got, which was when I was when I first joined the Army. I was a combat field medic, and I was doing a rotation in a hospital, and I was working with a future dermatologist, and he began to tell me how long the training was, and I'm like, man, I can't imagine spending that much time in training. And he said this piece of advice, which is 10 years from now, you are going to be 10 years older. No matter what you do, you better do something that you love. And I lived my life that way. And I hope everybody else does too.
And the last thing I want to say is something you've also always said, which is, man, you use this for toasts. May you know right now how good you're getting it. Can you say it better than how does it go?
That's my toast at weddings is, may you know how good you've got it while you're getting it.
Boom. That's it. Yeah, because I always say, Yoda, there's no do, there's only try. Oh, wait, no, there is no try, there's only do when I'm playing golf.
Do or do not, there is no try.
Say it again. You know how good you got it when
you... may you know how good you've got it while you're getting it. It's a flashback to the Bruce Springsteen song, Glory Days, right? I always felt terrible about these people who would reminisce about the good old days. And because they didn't realize how good it was back then while they were experiencing
in the moment.
Right.
Yes.
And so if it's a good, it's a good old days for you right now, acknowledge it. And because you don't want to look back and say you missed it.
Yeah. Oh, that is beautiful. And on that note, I am going to send my applause. Thank you. Thank you so much for
so much fun. Oh, Kate, this was so much fun. Thank you for inviting us to share our little story on your podcast. I hope somebody got something useful.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. What an amazing episode with Doctors Liz Treynor and Dr. Liz Treynor and Dr. Chako. They were just fabulous. And oh my gosh, can I just tell you, they had talked in sound. I feel like they talked in sound bites. Like everything they said was newsworthy and could be used for like a book. So very, very easy to come up with take-home points, except that I might have like 6 instead of 3. So number 1, labels may not be helpful. And they may be helpful sometimes, and they may not be helpful other times. So if you happen to be somebody with depression or another neurodiverse or mental health illness label, maybe you want to call it something different. Maybe you want to call it mentally spiced. I have a mentally spiced brain with low twitch and fast twitch, or low twitch and high twitch fibers. And your depression, it might not be helpful to label it as that. And that's okay. And talking about it with others is also okay once you start being more comfortable calling it and labeling it what you want to label it as. And you may need more than one level of support. You may need more than medication. You may need more than therapy. You may need a psychiatrist and a coach. You may need Prozac and sleep. You may need more exercise and, support from family who cares for you. That's okay to have and want, and go find all of it. Mental health is extremely important. This was a really good tip that not many people suggest, and I love this. Practice desire. Dr. Chako tells his wife, go practice what it feels like to have desire, to want intimacy. And Liz was so funny. She's like, but I'd rather be playing on my phone. I'd rather be scrolling on Facebook. It's so much more fun. When the best investment in their relationship, or probably one of the best investments in the relationship, it sounds like they're both very intimately charged, is that maybe she does want to go practice desire, to invest herself, her time, some energy into practicing what that feels like. Even though she may not, and she gave me this great quote, you don't need to be in the mood to enjoy it. Do it in the morning, she says. Motivation will follow the movement. Just like getting on your Peloton every morning. You may not want to get on that Peloton. You may not want to get up and go outside for a jog or go to your muscle lifting class. But what if you just start, right? What if you're just open to starting for a few seconds, a few minutes? Motivation will follow the movement. And learning how to spread joy to yourself, to your spouse, enjoying the moment. You need to be very comfortable with who you are to be married to anyone. Everybody, right? We're all humans. We're all going to have idiosyncrasies. We're going to have little things that you may find annoying. You may love, you may choose to love. You may love, and then that turns into annoyance. So, or you may be embarrassed, right? Like, you can choose to feel any of these things. We are the owners of our own feelings. We can't give this away to anybody else. So not until you have become comfortable with who you are, can you be comfortable being around your spouse or another human. That's just it. Like, if somebody is making you uncomfortable, you need to examine why. It's probably something in your own brain you're not comfortable with, and just recognize that. Okay. And they gave this great example about how Liz is talkative and she's like a squirrel on the Red Bull scale. That was hilarious. The squirrel on the Red Bull scale. And if Dr. Chako wasn't comfortable with that, right? If he wasn't comfortable with his own self, Charles, then it's going to be very hard to accept other people for who they are. So all beautiful points. And I hope you guys walk away asking yourself, do I have a mentally spiced brain? What I prefer to call my my brain low twitch or high twitch today? Could I use this squirrel on Red Bull scale for myself and just to help in our relationship? Okay, tell my husband, hey, I'm a 9 on the Red Bull scale, squirrel scale. Do I want to read the book, The Anatomy of Arousal, and practice what turns me on? Am I comfortable talking about mental health and talking about it with other physicians? Do I make it so that my spouse needs to ask for permission to do things? Or do we have a marriage of equals where we don't have to ask permission for most things? So much love, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this amazing interview, this with Liz Treynor and Charles Stillman. Thank you so much for coming on. Go spread love and not hate. Spread love and connection and openness and vulnerability into the world. So much love, my friends. If you are finding the concepts I teach in these episodes useful and want more in-depth and personalized support for your relationship, consider this your invitation to join me in creating the most connected and intimate relationship with your spouse that you could dream of. Go to www.medicinemarriageandmoney.com right now and download my 18-page medical marriage survival guide and workbook at no cost to you. I also have a 6-day marriage challenge, which goes over the 6 predictors of divorce at no cost to you. These have been known to decrease fighting, rumination, and grudges between you and your loved one. If you want to take it a step farther, really enhance the joy and connection in the most intimate relationship in your life, sign up for my 8-week Making Marriage Work program today at medicinemarriageandmoney.com. Thanks for leaving us a stellar review, subscribing, and sharing with your friends on social media. You have the power to improve someone else's life and marriage simply by sharing this episode. Much love to you and your spouse. You're exactly where you need to be in this moment. Adios, my friends. The content of this episode is not intended to be a substitute for professional, medical, or financial advice. The opinions provided on this episode are those of myself or the invited guest alone. They do not represent the opinions of any particular institution. Always seek the advice of your physician or financial advisor with any questions you may have of a medical condition or financial plan. This is for your entertainment only.